Greetings and welcome back for another edition of Dispatches from a World Gone Mad. I'm your host, award-winning investigative reporter Greg Schwartz here in the Bay Area. And with me, as always, is my legal advisor, Kevin Dean, who looks like he is investigating Ted Cruz's trip to Cancun down there on the playa south of the border. And so, gosh, it's been too long since we've been here to discuss so many troubling issues in the deepening of this world gone mad over the past couple weeks, starting with Ted Cruz's state of Texas becoming a failed state, and they're just appalling inability to keep the lights on. Not that we haven't had some issues with that here in California, also related to the wildfires, as the Republican whatabouters will quickly claim, of course. However, what we saw in Texas was a truly disturbing nexus of calamity where the reason that the power failed in Texas was because of the deregulation of their state energy system so that they aren't connected to any other states for backup because they don't want to have federal regulation. And so then you have no power due to the polar vortex, which froze up their systems there. And then you have no heat in the middle of a historic freezing winter storm. So you have no power, you have no heat, and then the water treatment plant goes out and they had to issue boil water notice. Then you have no water, and if you can't have power, you're not going to be able to boil your water. Oh my God. And then because of all these other factors, the food shortage supplies because of supply lines. This pained me in my heart because, as you know, I spent 3 years in the Lone Star State after I made the mistake of chasing a staff writer job with the San Antonio Current back in 2008. And so I still got a lot of friends down there, and I could have easily settled in Austin if one or two things had panned out differently, perhaps. So it just pained me so much to read about what they were dealing with down there. And now their asshat governor, Greg Abbott, I thought Rick Perry was the worst possible governor you could possibly have, but Abbott's giving him a run for the money here by reopening Texas. 100%, everything's open for business. I guess he's trying to challenge Donald Trump for asshole of the year now that Trump is no longer in politics. And so the whole situation is just so disgusting. You look like you have a take on Ted Cruz there.
Yeah, I mean, you call it a failed state, but when you look at the commentary coming out of the Republican Party in Texas, it's by design, right? This was designed to fail because why should they plan for bad weather in Texas, right? And when bad weather comes, what is it really but other than an opportunity to make millions and millions of dollars off of the death and freezing of poor people? I mean, it's absolutely horrendous. It shows a market failure. When you think about capitalism, right, the myth is that capitalism is the most efficient provider of resources and that the market always prevails. So here the market failed miserably and people died. Died. I mean, a really horrible, sad story of a kid freezing to death in his bed overnight,
should not happen in the United States of America, the so-called greatest country in the history of the world.
Well, it shouldn't happen anywhere in the world. And the reason why it happens anywhere in the world is because capitalism is failing. And so when you talk about a failed state, it's really a failed economic system. The state of Texas is working exactly as it's designed. It's not a failure that was designed to cause this harm. And the purpose of it is that if there was ever any kind of incident, then they would just jack the prices up. A megawatt of power during the second and third week of February went on average from $1,489.75 to upwards of $9,000. They
were also extremely naive in believing that this couldn't happen there, even though they had been warned just 10 years ago when a massive winter storm basically paralyzed the city of Dallas during Super Bowl weekend of all time. So there was plenty of publicity about what happened, and they were warned that they needed to beef up their systems. And of course, here you get a confluence with the Republican denial of the climate change crisis, because they say that global warming is a hoax or not real. And then they'll say, oh, well, if global warming is a thing, how can we have these winter storms? And they don't understand the science, because how global warming causes more moisture and it affects the whole system, and you get these polar vortexes becoming stronger, and we have more heavy weather, and it's becoming not a 100-year, once in a 100-year event, as so many delusional right wingers are trying to say. We're seeing these extreme weather events becoming more and more frequent, pretty much annually now. Some kind of extreme weather is going down in the United States every year. And so this is a truly troubling problem, as we find ourselves on a pathway to Mad Max Fury Road if we don't solve this problem.
Well, I don't know that it's naive, or naivety. I think it is cold indifference, calculated indifference to the needs of poor people. I didn't hear of one rich person freezing to death in Texas, right? And in fact, we see Ted behind me going to visit his pal Chris Christie on the beach, getting out of town. Now, maybe that was already
of hypocrisy.
Yeah, maybe that was already a planned vacation, but there was certainly no reason he should stick around, because he is affluent enough to leave, right? The hotels,
he only came back because he got cold busted.
And the hotels in Texas, right? I mean, the rates skyrocketed. People got shut out of hotels. Again,
the failures of capitalism. Then you have Rick Perry claiming that, oh no, Texans will be more than happy to go however many days without heat in order to avoid federal regulation. The boogeyman, again, the big government boogeyman is always driving what's going on there in Texas, which of course epitomizes the worst of libertarian republicanism and the whole GOP death cult.
And I found it quite funny to hear Elon Musk complaining about the loss of power to his plant after he had just fled California for deregulated Texas.
That was ironic, wasn't it? I don't know if any rich people died, but certainly they had some issues. I think also with not every rich neighborhood had power and heat. So I think we had very much a statewide problem that I would like to hope might affect voting patterns in the next elections down there, but we'll have to see. And so you have an asshole Greg Abbott trying to blame wind power and a Green New Deal, as if Texas had a Green New Deal. And then I was very pleased to see AOC come out and say, no, this is exactly what happens when you don't have a Green New Deal. And then while Ted was jetting off to Cancun, AOC was raising $5 million for Texas. But you don't see any other right wingers giving her any credit for that.
And it's just absolutely absurd. Within the first 24 to 48 hours of the news cycle this was hitting, social media was blitzed, or there was a blizzard of social media blaming sustainable energy as the culprit, right? And then once that was quickly debunked and everyone knew that it was BS, do you see any right-wing pundits eating their hats and saying that they were wrong? No, because it's a propaganda machine, right? And so since then, we've seen countless examples of wind turbines and solar working in Arctic temperatures. It wasn't because the technology
they need to be weatherized, which they didn't do because it would cost money and it wouldn't be as profitable. And again, coming back to the failure of capitalism to provide for people's needs.
But back to, you've always got this rosy sentiment that this is going to be fixed with voting. My prediction is that rich people are going to get Tesla batteries or other similar batteries, and they're going to have more self-sufficient energy within their homes. And poor people are going to continue to freeze to death in Texas unless they take to the streets and go and occupy those homes that have heat and take them over.
Well, I wouldn't say that voting will fix everything, but certainly I'd like to think that Ted Cruz will be voted out, and like Greg Abbott too. But we'll have to see. And I'd like to take a quick moment to do some product placement here for the Hen House. Can you see that?
No.
There. The Green New Deal IPA from Hen House Brewing here in Santa Rosa, California, this is a beer where the proceeds go to the Climate Emergency Fund to help fight for a Green New Deal. And they also tell you to contact your reps and call them and tell them you want the Green New Deal. And they've got this going with other breweries around the West Coast and even a few across the country. And so everyone should look for the Green New Deal IPA and buy it and drink it because it's good.
Is it green?
No, it's not green. They did not put green food coloring in it.
Oh, that's good.
It's a tasty IPA. Pretty hazy, not necessarily juicy, but smooth. It's very good. I like seeing
4-pack or 6-pack. What's that run you?
It's a 4-pack of Tall Boys, 7% ABV. I like to see breweries for a cause. Like earlier this summer, we had a brewery from San Antonio. Actually, was the ones that led that Black is Beautiful Stout project, and a whole bunch of breweries did that to raise money for Black Lives Matter. And so I think, we need more of this conscious beer would be a good thing.
Would that set you back, that 4-pack, just out of curiosity?
Oh, it was like $14. About average for your heady Tall Boys these days.
Yep, still cheaper than the bar.
Yes, that's at the bar. Well, actually, bars are reopening now. Even here in the Bay Area, we have outdoor bars, and I guess they just reopened indoor for 25%. Not that I have any desire to be eating indoors before this pandemic is over. So, but I have visited some of the patio bar and dining establishments. Now in Texas, that takes us back to this idiot Abbot, who just said he's reopening Texas. Not only is he reopening 100%, he is also ending the state mask mandate. And so this is going to be bad, not just for Texas, but it's going to help spread it all around because people travel to Texas and then it's so irresponsible. But that just gets back to the whole irresponsibility of the Republican Party and the absolute lack of morals, ethics. It just continues to astound me how these libertarians can support this. They just don't care about anyone but themselves, and they don't believe in science. And so it's just
until they catch COVID. So if you look behind me, you see Chris Christie, right? And he was a big critic of all of the COVID protections until his ass ended up in the ICU. And he comes back out and he's like, oh, COVID's real and people need to take it seriously. I almost fucking died over this, you know?
Oh, yeah. Just like we found that Trump took the vaccine in secret, even though he was took every attempt to downplay it, as well as straight up lie about the severity of it. Mm-hmm. And still his cult followers, they're so brainwashed that they still don't think he did anything wrong.
Well, let's move on into further discussion on the state of COVID. You mentioned Abbott. Here in Arizona, the state house passed a bill. It came out of the House. It's gone to the Senate that would ban mask mandates, right? So Arizona's following along. We've got a bunch of horrible voting bills coming through that would outlaw voter registration drives.
Every red state is trying to pass these horrible voter bills because they know that the only way they can win is to suppress the vote.
And then that gets us to the national COVID relief, bill. I don't know what your memory was of the Biden campaign towards the end there, but I remember getting promised a $2,000 check, right? And then as soon as
$2,000 checks are going to go right out the door.
And then afterwards we learned that $1,400 equals $2,000
because you're already getting the $600. Although a lot of people, including myself, had their $600 taken by the IRS because of tax debt. This is an outrage. These are supposed to be stimulus checks. There is no way the IRS should be getting their hands on them. It's fucking outrageous. And people have been talking about this issue and trying to get tax relief into the bill. That's not happening. We've been fighting just to try to keep the unemployment boost at $400 a week instead of letting asshats like Joe Manchin tell them, no, it can only be 300. These people are so disconnected from reality and so disconnected from what the pain, economic pain and suffering that so many people are going through. The economy is not back, and we still have tens of millions of people who are unemployed or underemployed because of the pandemic. And so the fact that they want to means test, they just did some more means testing, right? They took the 1,400 now. It's going to go. If you made more than 80, they're gonna means
zero.
test you down. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so less people.
This is Democrats
such a
doing this,
political
right?
fail by the Democrats, because now less people will be getting it than got the 1,200 last year.
Trump is going to be more effective at giving socialistic stimulus than Democrats, right? And Democrats
well,
are
only because of that was the crisis when it was first happening, but
No.
technically, yeah. But technically, yes.
The reason why Trump did that is because he thought it would get him reelected, and it almost did. You know?
No, but then he stalled on passing another stimulus in the fall because he didn't want he wanted. God, it was all such a mess. I remember we had Pelosi promising us that it was going to be retroactive, and now no one's talking about that anymore.
And that's a big deal, right? Because what is the criticism of the Democrats? They can't be trusted. They can't be trusted. They can't be trusted. And that's, I mean, regardless of what you think of Trump, right? I mean, I think you can't trust him, but that the belief is that he talks straight, even though that's not true. But we know that also Democrats can't be trusted. And when you look at
none of them can. Obviously, neither party can be trusted. But we know that the GOP death call are just flat out liars. Whereas, yes, the Democrats take put more nuance into their fabrications. They'll say one thing and then wind up doing another and say, well, they got their hand forced or something because Joe Manchin or the parliamentarian didn't want to said we couldn't raise the minimum wage.
Where is the Democratic equivalent of Mitch McConnell, right? Because
that's the problem.
Mitch McConnell can make Republicans do things that Republicans do not want to do. Democrats don't have that right now.
That's because Chuck
president
Schumer
of the United States?
Is such a
I don't know. I can't tell if it's Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema right now who the president of the United States is, because they're the ones setting policy.
Look at McConnell's counterpart in the Senate. It's Chuck Schumer. And Mr. Schumer, he'll say the right things most of the time. But he says them in such a post way as to almost negate the entire sentiment. And it's just like it goes in one ear and out the other.
And that gets back to the criticism. That gets back to the criticism of the two-party system and saying that they're both different arms of the corporatocracy of this country. It's not an invalid criticism. We're seeing that in the first 44 days of the Biden administration.
With the notable exception of the squad, who are being very vocal about what we should be seeing and aren't getting from the corporate Democrats. And so that's where it's at. We need more representatives like that because they are fighting for big us.
What is it about sheepdogs in particular that you find so appealing? Is it the way that they wag their tail and they kind of sniff around and hop around? I mean, what makes it so appealing that people act like sheep and follow sheepdogs into the Democratic Party?
You're wrong. AOC and the squad are not sheepdogs. They have moved the conversation to the left on so many issues. We have made so much progress from where we were back at the beginning of, say, the Obama era, where he just dissolved his entire grassroots army, right? That's not what happened this time. Now we have a very active left. We have DSA lobbying. We're working for the Green New Deal, the PRO Act. We've got AOC and the squad fighting for big us. So there's a big difference. You cannot lump them in with the rest of the Democrats. That is a big mistake. We need to support them. We need to support them instead of calling them sheepdogs.
About the minimum wage thing, do you think there are any Democrats that would approve amending congressional salaries to minimum wage?
Of course not.
I think
They're
that's
out
something
of touch.
I
These
think that's
people are
something that
out
the
of touch,
American people
and
can
they're
get
let
behind,
Joe
right?
Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema have too much power, and the
Let's
parliamentarian. Like now, Bernie says, we need to just dump this parliamentarian, and now this puts Kamala Harris on the spot. She needs to step up. I never trusted her, and so she needs to. She could step up and overrule the parliamentarian to get the minimum wage, but we already have Biden signaling that he's not going to do that. So
and that's the question I have
you need
about
to
all this.
keep your criticisms of Biden and Harris and the corporate Democrats separate. Do not lump AOC and Bernie in the squad in with them, and do not call them sheepdogs either, because that's bullshit.
Where is Joe Biden? Have you seen him?
He made a trip to Texas, didn't he?
Yeah. So we're like, what? How many days is it?
Where's Kamala Harris? I haven't seen her.
Well,
how come she's not weighing in on this argument about the minimum wage?
But
She's
Joe
supposed
Biden's
to be
president,
so progressive,
right? And Joe Biden's president. He's saying there's nothing he can do on the minimum wage front. There's nothing he can do on the amount in the COVID stimulus. He's the president. He's supposedly speaking from a bully pulpit, but he's not even really speaking very much. He hasn't conducted a single press conference since his inauguration. And when is the State of the Union address going to be set? Now, the right-wing conspiracy theorists are saying that, of course, he's not willing to conduct press conferences or schedule a State of the Union because he's an imbecile and a feeble-minded person who can't put together a series of thoughts. I mean,
that doesn't fly. We saw him speak plenty of coherent thoughts in the debates and.
Even Trump was suggesting that he was all amped up on speed in doing that. And of course, to me, when Trump makes those allegations, it's probably indicative of he himself being on speed, because the pattern with Trump is he blames others for what he does. But
that's Republicans in general.
He's been in office for 43, 44 days, not one press conference. And if you look back at the history of State of the Union addresses, going to Woodrow Wilson in 1913.
All right, wait, now stop right there. You have to consider we have a freaking pandemic going on. So why would a 78, 79-year-old guy want to be putting himself out there in regular press conferences?
Hold on a second, Greg. Are you actually sitting in front of the Golden Gate Bridge? Am I actually hanging out with Ted Cruz and Chris Christie? Or are there ways for them to conduct this thing? We've been living with this for a year now. We can't blame the pandemic. And in fact, the White House hasn't blamed the pandemic. With the White House, if you look at what they're saying, explaining why there isn't a State of the Union address plan, it's the terrorist threat from the insurrection. Have you seen these reports? They're saying,
because they were fearing that there was going to be a new attempt to overtake the Capitol today.
Yeah, so that was supposed to happen today, and it didn't happen. But that's their excuse, right? But I don't see any compelling.
Well, that was an unprecedented event that occurred 2 months ago.
I mean, it was unprecedented, but what was it such a security threat that you can't hold a speech via Zoom as we're doing now?
What do you want him to say?
I want to know what his plan is, what his agenda is, what he's going to do as president, and I want to hear him talk about what he's accomplished. And I want him, and that's when he can take the bully pulpit and pressure these Democrats to get this COVID relief passed and move our country forward towards equality, right? I mean, right now people can't afford housing.
Entrusting all that to his representatives in Congress, right? He keeps saying, "Well, I don't want to tell Congress what to do," or blah blah. Yeah, I don't know. He has been a bit on the hands-off side. So yeah, you already know what his agenda is. Joe Biden is a neoliberal corporatist. Now, yes, he still looks like FDR compared to Trump, but Joe Biden is turning out to be who we thought he is, unfortunately. And so that's why we need to keep pressuring our members of Congress to step up.
A significant portion of this country think he's a mentally deranged and incompetent fool.
A significant portion of this country are mentally deranged. Everyone who voted for Trump is a delusional cult member.
I mean, if your standard of comparison wasn't Trump, right? And you're comparing him to if you just were comparing Biden to any other Democratic nominee, you and I would be very unhappy with this selection.
We were unhappy, right? Of course.
And what I'm saying is it's very odd It's very odd for him to have not conducted a press conference and for no State of the Union address to be scheduled. And the only reason we're getting are these bullshit terrorist claims as to why a speech can't be.
Well, yeah, I'm less concerned about
It's a
that
bit
than
odd.
I am about the failure to deliver on the stimulus. Although, right, they're gonna pass something here within the next week, right? They always said March 14th was going to be the deadline for getting that done, because that's when the last extension was going to, the 11-week federal extension that the state of California has still failed to implement for at least 750,000 people, because they need to reprogram their decrepit computer system. So we need a lot more money put into upgrading these decrepit systems, because the capitalists don't care about people who are unemployed. Even though if they actually wanted a thriving economy, they should put a little more care into that, because when people have money to spend, that helps the economy.
But did we have to wait this long for Biden to authorize bombing Syria, right? We didn't have to wait for that. And we don't even know how committed he is to these things that he campaigned on, because he's not even speaking publicly about them. It's a problem. It's a problem. And how can you hold him accountable?
How much should he be speaking? I mean, how many? It's not even been it's been a month and a half. How many times would a president speak in 6 weeks?
This is the longest, I think, that a president's ever gone from being elected and not holding a press conference. And it's the longest one's ever gone from not holding a State of the Union address. And we've gotten no good reason for it. And other than his hands are tied with the COVID stuff. It's a bit ridiculous, and we should be very displeased with it. Even if you support him, you shouldn't be just looking the other way as he just goes.
I don't know. I'll have to look more into that. I'm far less concerned about him giving some press conferences than I am about what's going to be in this stimulus package. And yeah, that's really the main thing. What else? What do you want him to come out and say?
I want him to come out and say, I'm the president of the United States. I was elected on a mandate to bring relief to working class people. People in West Virginia and Arizona need that relief. We're going to raise minimum wage.
Okay, I like where you're going there. Yes. He needs to address Arizona and West Virginia in particular. Yeah.
And because what is going to happen is that Democrats are going to lose the House in 2022.
Right? Yeah, they need to step up, or they'll lose badly. Right? Yeah.
Who cares if Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, let them change their party affiliation. Let them become Republicans if they want to vote like Republicans. I'm tired of these centrist Democrats hijacking the party. They're an extreme. And I do think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying. And you're saying that the Democratic Party has changed and it's moved to the left, but we're still being hijacked by these centrists. Right?
Yeah,
it's the same thing we've been seeing since 1992 with Bill Clinton, and it's enough is enough. And Biden doesn't necessarily need to take 10 steps to the left, but he needs to let the party know that he's in charge, and he's not going to allow these centrists to hijack his plan, because he campaigned on promises to the American people, and he needs to hold up to that. And when you look at minimum wage, I am so sick of hearing these comparisons for what people used to make in the 1970s. Oh, I made
right, and not counting inflation, right?
Right.
That one asshat talked about he only made $6, which would be $24 now.
Right. I mean, rents are
we don't get much context from the corporate media, unfortunately. They never give you the context on these things.
Housing prices are sky high.
But wages haven't gone up.
And $15, the $15 movement, that is a movement from 15 years ago, right?
Right.
It's not even relevant to today.
Oh, but it wouldn't be as strong as it is without Bernie Sanders, who you consider a sheepdog. He's the one who's still fighting to save it.
But I'm saying is if this had been a movement that had caused it to happen, as opposed to just voting for Democrats so that we can let folks in West Virginia and Arizona dictate national policy, we wouldn't be here, right? And really the problem is the decline of unions in this country over the last 6 years.
Yes, and that's why DSA is all about the PRO Act, because that would help build unions back and give workers more power to help organize for the Green New Deal. And so you should start looking more at DSA, because they are doing the organizing that you want to see in the Democratic Party that you're not going to get from the corporate centrists. But here we have a large growing organization that has elected members to Congress, and they are working on organizing around all these things that we really need. And it's a great organization, and people like you should give them more credit and more support.
The PRO Act, is this
and let me take that moment also to add another reason I'm proud to be drinking this Green New Deal IPA is that I was accepted as an official member of DSA's Eco-Socialist Working Group last week. Cheers to that.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Does the
I'm
PRO
quite
Act,
pleased with it.
is this the legislation that would end the right to work laws in various states?
Yeah, the bogus, disingenuous right to work, right to get slave wages, what it should be called. And so, yeah, there's been a war on workers and unions, and the PRO Act has been identified as a significant item. And so we have DSA leading an action, having a meeting on that on Sunday, March 7th. DSA PRO Act, March 7th. Yeah, let's see. Pass the PRO Act. Workers and the world unite. DSA for PRO Act campaign launch call with Naomi Klein, who I'm quite fond of, Sarah Nelson, and more. Sunday, March 7th, 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Central, 3 Mountain, 2 Pacific. In the 20th century, major gains for the working class in the original New Deal were achieved through militant labor organizing. Rebuilding this capacity is crucial to winning the world we want. No matter who's running government, only a radicalized and organized working class can win transformative reforms that can make the 21st century livable for all. To solve our climate and economic crisis, we need a Green New Deal. To win a Green New Deal, we need mass worker power. To build mass worker power, we need to pass the PRO Act. That's why in the first 100 days of the Biden administration, Democratic Socialists of America are launching a push to pass the PRO Act, which would strengthen unions, the power of the working class to organize on the job, and our collective capacity to win a just transition to a green economy for all in the years ahead. Join us for a campaign launch call Sunday, March 7th. See, here's an organization that is working to get things done.
Meanwhile, you have Eric Sherman over at Forbes declaring that the PRO Act is becoming labor's amateur hour.
Oh, geez. Why am I surprised? Why am I not surprised that Forbes magazine is trying to throw shade?
But they also predict that the conservatives and the Democratic Party will ensure that the PRO Act, if it makes it out of the House, is doomed to failure. Which again, not a surprise. Thanks a lot, Democrats.
Yes. So what can we do about freaking Manchin and Sinema? That's boy. That's a problem. So, but that's okay. We're at 30. We're a little over half an hour. I guess it's almost time for us to wrap this up.
Well, we were going to talk a little bit about what's going on with cryptocurrency. How are your holdings?
Cryptocurrency is booming. I still have all too little to invest, unfortunately, although I did make a small investment in Dogecoin, which I am bullish on. And so I'm getting ready to make an investment. I'm going to do some Bitcoin, some Ethereum, and some Cardano. These are the ones that I feel, along with Dogecoin, who I think these are going to be, I mean, Bitcoin is booming. And now you've got non-fungible tokens in art. And have you heard about this? These non-fungible tokens? Rolling Stone just had an article about this and how the music industry is going to start using Kings of Leon are going to release their new album with special perks through non-fungible tokens. It's a very weird word. I don't.
Is this similar to the blockchain assets that the
yes,
sports
it
are
is
doing?
similar. It's putting it's using blockchain to help artists get paid. So that sounds like a democratic move in the right direction to me. And so, yeah, but the legitimacy of Bitcoin, right? You had Tesla, Musk put $1.5 billion into Bitcoin. And now you have, large institutional organizations also going into Bitcoin.
Right.
There's a
And you
lot
see
of buzz for Bitcoin.
today, then the CEO of Kraken said that it's going to reach $1 million within the next 10 years. But at the same time, you see a bunch of counter news saying that threatening government regulation could essentially deflate the whole thing within a matter of minutes.
Easier
I'd be
said
interested.
than done, though. See, that's the whole thing about decentralized finance, right? It's not so easy for the government just to step in and regulate it away, which is why Bitcoin has been looked upon as a populist tool for people in countries suffering from oppressive regimes.
Right, but as far as the things go in this country, I mean, what we've seen with this boom is broader institutional buy-in from banks and finance, right? Where you see
Right, and
these things coming.
universities.
But if the government were to come in and impose severe regulations or basically outlaw it, then a lot of these major companies that have now offered sales of these coins wouldn't do it. I mean, I don't think it's likely to happen. But
I don't think, how can they come in and outlaw when all their own institutional organizations are already doing it? I mean, I think we're already past that point. It's starting to seem like.
Well, and I think what's shaping up, right, is a changing of the guard of the oligarchy, right? And so we've been seeing this trend coming for a while in tech, but with the rise of blockchain and alternative currencies, we're seeing more of this shift into tech of finance, and the world of finance has controlled the world for so long. And so I could see where there could be these pressures on governments to engage in a reactionary realm of regulation to kind of stay the way, to as a last gasp of protection against the old guard of the oligarchy of finance. And so it's not outside the realm of possibility. Whether or not it'd be successful will be interesting. But
I'm ready to invest in Bitcoin. It just keeps going up. I mean, you see the trend. It's just, if you would invest, right? If that guy first Bitcoin, when Bitcoin first started, the guy paid a ridiculous amount for some pizzas that would now be worth like millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
So it seems like the wave of the future, and it's time. I think it's time to get on board. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying, like, anytime that there's a change of the power structure that results in less power to folks, people don't give it up willingly, and there could be a war in finance coming.
Well, okay, that's something we'll have to dig into more on another episode of Dispatches from a World Gone Mad. So I think that'll be it for now. We're going to definitely have to talk more about these lunatics in Texas. So glad I didn't settle in Austin. That would have just been the concept of freezing without power or water or food in the United States of America. It's just so ludicrous. And so it all comes back to, we got to get that Green New Deal, or we're going to be on Mad Max Fury Road. And with that, we will bid you adieu and see you next time on Dispatches from a World Gone Mad.